People are leaving Crimea. Not suddenly, not officially, but quietly. Reports suggest movement is increasing. Transport routes are crowded. Daily life feels tense. Ukraine is not striking violently. It is applying steady pressure. So what is really happening? Why are people moving now? And what does this mean for the future? Let's break it down. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are covering a developing story from Crimea. Recent reports indicate that Russian civilians, workers, and some administrative personnel are leaving the peninsula. This is not a formal evacuation. There are no emergency announcements. However, transport patterns, property listings, and crowd reports suggest increasing movement. Trains and buses are fuller than usual. Road traffic has picked up. These signals point to concern among residents rather than panic. Crimea holds major strategic importance. It hosts naval bases, airfields, and supply routes essential for regional operations. Because of this, even small disruptions have significant impact. Ukraine's strategy focuses on applying pressure gradually, without large-scale assaults. Infrastructure, logistics, and key supply lines are targeted to create long-term strain. Residents and families respond naturally to uncertainty. Some choose temporary relocation. Others adjust work and daily schedules. Russian officials continue to emphasize stability and control in public messaging. Yet private behavior often reveals a different story. Observers note that population movements can indicate growing uncertainty. Understanding these patterns is critical. It provides insight into broader military and administrative dynamics in Crimea. This video will break down these developments, explain why they are happening, and what the potential implications could be for the region and beyond. Crimea's strategic value makes it highly sensitive to even small changes. It hosts vital ports, air bases, and supply corridors that influence regional operations. Ukraine's approach has been careful. Rather than sudden strikes or large offensives, pressure is applied incrementally. This includes targeting key logistics hubs, transportation infrastructure, and supply lines. Even minor disruptions can create ripple effects that influence civilian movement. Families and workers plan ahead when transport becomes uncertain. Temporary relocation becomes a rational choice in such conditions. Property and rental markets show early signs of increased activity. Trains and buses report higher than usual demand. Russian officials publicly emphasize stability and continuity, but private behavior sometimes differs. Small changes in daily routines can signal growing concern. International analysts note that this phase is about psychological and logistical pressure rather than direct confrontation. Civilian decisions reflect risk perception more than immediate threat. Economic factors, such as tourism, job availability, and supply costs also play a role. Sanctions and limited access to banking or trade add to uncertainty. By carefully applying pressure, Ukraine increases the cost of occupation gradually. This avoids large-scale escalation while creating long-term strategic advantage. Observers describe this approach as strategic patience. Movement patterns, infrastructure stress, and civilian adjustments all indicate its effectiveness. Monitoring these trends helps understand the broader implications of the conflict. Crimea today is a region under controlled pressure, with residents responding rationally to uncertainty. Small shifts now can influence larger outcomes in the weeks and months ahead. Information and perception play a significant role in Crimea's dynamics. Both sides manage narratives carefully, shaping how civilians respond. Ukraine releases limited information, often emphasizing visuals or satellite data instead of dramatic statements. Russia highlights control and continuity in official messaging. Between these narratives lies the reality experienced by residents. Social media reports, transport usage, and property data offer clearer insight into population trends. None of these alone prove mass flight, but together they indicate cautious relocation. Uncertainty is a key factor influencing movement. Even without direct threats, signs of logistical strain prompt proactive choices. Increased inspections, restricted areas, and changing schedules all affect daily life. Families consider safety, employment, and education when deciding to stay or leave. Temporary relocation becomes a practical solution. Ukraine's approach aims to make prolonged control costly without provoking mass panic. Each adjustment, from checkpoints to repairs, adds administrative and economic pressure. Over time, this reduces efficiency for local authorities and alters population behavior. Crimea's geography magnifies these effects. Routes are limited, supplies depend on specific corridors, and flexibility is constrained. Analysts observe that population shifts reflect careful risk management rather than fear-driven chaos. Monitoring civilian decisions provides insight into strategic impact. Satellite imagery, transport data, and property trends are essential tools for understanding developments. While headlines may exaggerate, measured observation reveals real change. The current situation in Crimea is a combination of controlled pressure, civilian adjustment, and strategic maneuvering. Ukraine's pressure strategy focuses on precision rather than overwhelming force. Targets are selected to disrupt logistics, supply chains, and administrative coordination. This minimizes civilian harm while maximizing strategic effect. Such actions align with international law and maintain credibility among external partners. Western countries closely monitor Crimea. Any reckless activity could undermine support, so Ukraine acts carefully. Russian defenses remain strong but are stretched thin. Air defense systems, border patrols, and administrative staffing require constant resources. Over time, this strain becomes evident to both officials and civilians. Night alerts, security checks, and restricted movement influence daily routines. Families with options often relocate temporarily. Even modest shifts in population density affect local services and businesses. Schools, clinics, and markets adjust operations. Ukraine's gradual approach reduces the risk of large-scale escalation while increasing long-term cost for occupying forces. Analysts refer to this method as strategic attrition, without conflict. Crimea's isolation amplifies the effect of each disruption. Routes are limited, and delays impact supply and morale. Residents experience minor friction that accumulates over time. Russian messaging attempts to reassure, but credibility depends on consistency with observed reality. The combination of pressure, perception, and logistical strain defines the current phase. Observers note that changes are slow but measurable. Understanding this allows analysts and civilians alike to see Crimea as a region under careful strategic pressure rather than immediate crisis. Population movement in Crimea is influenced by anticipated risk as much as immediate conditions. People consider future uncertainty when making relocation decisions. Economic factors, including job stability, tourism revenue, and property value, play a significant role. Security conditions, transport reliability, and service availability are also critical. Ukraine's pressure strategy increases uncertainty without dramatic confrontation. Civilians respond rationally, adjusting plans based on observed trends. Russian officials continue to project stability, but behavior on the ground may differ. Temporary relocation, adjusted work schedules, and modified routines are common responses. Even small changes in population affect the local economy and administrative workload. Schools, healthcare facilities, and businesses adapt to shifting demand. International media may exaggerate for attention, but measured observation reveals subtle trends. Movement is not mass panic, it is calculated adjustment. This gradual response benefits Ukraine strategically. Reduced population density increases administrative cost and diminishes efficiency. Supply disruptions and delays amplify these effects. Analysts emphasize that understanding minor shifts is critical to assessing strategic impact. Civilians' perception of risk can influence military and political calculations. Property markets, transportation patterns, and social indicators provide early insights. By monitoring these signals, observers can evaluate the effectiveness of Ukraine's strategy. Crimea remains under control, but strategic pressure is visible in daily choices. The long-term impact may reshape demographics, economy, and governance over time. Patience and careful observation are essential to interpreting ongoing developments in Crimea. Regional reactions play a crucial role in understanding Crimea's situation. Neighboring areas closely monitor developments, as any instability can affect the wider Black Sea region. Shipping routes, energy infrastructure, and trade corridors are all connected, making Crimea strategically significant beyond its borders. Ukraine's careful pressure strategy sends signals to multiple audiences. It demonstrates capability without provoking uncontrolled escalation. Russian authorities respond by reinforcing defenses, increasing patrols, and adjusting administrative operations. These actions indicate that they take the pressure seriously. Civilians observe these measures and factor them into their decisions about relocation or daily routines. Over time, gradual adjustments reshape population patterns and administrative efficiency. Analysts emphasize that small, steady changes can have cumulative effects on long-term stability. Ukraine's patient approach aims to exploit these dynamics without triggering dramatic confrontation. Each logistical adjustment, checkpoint, or repair adds strain to local authorities, increasing the cost of occupation. Infrastructure stress, civilian movement, and administrative workload all combine to create a strategic effect. Observers note that monitoring these subtle trends provides better insight than relying on sensational headlines. Crimea's geography magnifies the impact of these slow pressures. Limited access routes, dependence on supply corridors, and isolation make minor disruptions more significant. Understanding this regional and logistical context helps viewers grasp why population shifts are occurring, even when the situation appears controlled on the surface. Media framing strongly affects perception in Crimea. Headlines often emphasize panic or chaos, but the reality is more measured. Social media posts, videos, and images may exaggerate civilian movement. Responsible analysis requires cross checking official statements, satellite imagery, and independent reporting. Ukraine's strategy emphasizes precision and restraint, avoiding actions that would generate unnecessary civilian harm or international criticism. Russian narratives emphasize control and stability, but credibility depends on alignment with observed conditions. Civilians experience friction from minor disruptions, increased inspections, and rote changes. These daily adjustments shape long-term patterns rather than immediate crises. Analysts describe the current phase as controlled pressure, reflecting both logistical and psychological effects. Population movement is often voluntary and precautionary, not panic-driven. Observing these subtle shifts provides insight into the effectiveness of strategic operations. Infrastructure strain, population decisions, and administrative workload all combine to influence the broader environment. Over time, small cumulative changes reshape demographic, economic, and operational conditions. Understanding these dynamics helps viewers interpret news accurately, separating emotion from fact. Crimea remains under Russian control, but is subject to Ukraine's strategic influence through steady, measured actions. International observers continue to track developments closely. Their reports often confirm that the situation is fluid yet controlled. Patience and careful analysis provide the clearest picture of ongoing changes. This measured approach ensures informed discussion without exaggeration. Looking ahead, multiple scenarios could unfold in Crimea. Ukraine's strategy may continue applying steady pressure, maintaining infrastructure strain, and influencing civilian behavior. Alternatively, diplomatic negotiations or shifts in international relations could change local dynamics. Crimea's status remains central to these broader considerations, with both sides adjusting policies to preserve leverage. Ukraine benefits by using incremental pressure to strengthen its position without provoking large-scale escalation. Russian authorities may counter by increasing administrative support, relocating personnel, or reinforcing key supply lines. These responses mitigate immediate effects, but come at higher long-term cost. Civilian perception of these measures drives population decisions, influencing how families plan relocation, schooling, and employment. Analysts note that the interaction of military pressure, infrastructure strain, and economic uncertainty creates a feedback loop. Strategic patience allows Ukraine to influence outcomes without direct confrontation, while maintaining international credibility. Small shifts accumulate, producing meaningful long-term change without dramatic events. Monitoring transportation patterns, property activity, and economic indicators provides insight into these trends. Civilians act rationally in response to perceived risk, adjusting behavior gradually. This controlled dynamic highlights the effectiveness of indirect pressure. Crimea remains physically under control, but psychologically influenced by strategic uncertainty. Observing subtle indicators provides a clearer understanding of the situation than sensational headlines. The coming months will show how sustainable control is under ongoing strain. It is important to address misinformation in coverage of Crimea. Conflict zones often generate rumors, unverified images, and recycled content that exaggerates events. Responsible analysis depends on cross-checking multiple reliable sources, including satellite data, government statements, and independent reporting. Ukraine's strategic approach relies on credibility and measured messaging. Overstating events or civilian panic can undermine both operational objectives and international support. Russian authorities also maintain narratives of stability, yet discrepancies between messaging and civilian behavior are observable. Population movements, infrastructure adjustments, and local responses provide more accurate insight than sensational reporting. Civilians adjust routines, relocate temporarily, or modify work schedules based on perceived risk rather than actual threat. Understanding these trends allows observers to assess the effectiveness of strategic pressure. Infrastructure stress, transportation limitations, and administrative workloads combine to shape long-term outcomes. Analysts highlight that slow, cumulative effects often have more strategic impact than dramatic headlines. Crimea remains under Russian control, but Ukraine's influence through measured pressure is visible. Observing verified signals rather than reacting to rumors is essential. Daily patterns, such as traffic congestion, property activity, and service adjustments, reveal the real picture. Patience and careful interpretation prevent misreading the situation. The current phase reflects subtle, controlled influence rather than immediate collapse. This distinction is key for informed viewers and analysts alike, providing a more accurate understanding of ongoing developments. In conclusion, Crimea is experiencing a period of strategic pressure rather than open upheaval. Reports of Russian civilians leaving reflect rational responses to perceived uncertainty, not panic or sudden crisis. Ukraine's approach focuses on gradual influence, targeting logistics, infrastructure, and administrative efficiency while avoiding unnecessary escalation. Russian authorities maintain control, but must adapt to the increasing cost of occupation. Civilians adjust routines, relocate temporarily, and make practical decisions in response to subtle pressures. Understanding these developments requires separating fact from sensationalism. Monitoring transportation, property, and service activity provides clearer insight than headlines. Analysts emphasize that slow, cumulative effects often define the outcome of strategic pressure. Crimea's future will be shaped by military, economic, and diplomatic factors together. Awareness of these dynamics allows viewers to interpret events accurately. If you found this video informative, please like it and subscribe to the channel for balanced updates. Share this video with others seeking factual analysis rather than exaggeration. Leave your respectful comments below to join the discussion. Supporting the channel allows us to continue delivering reliable, neutral,